The richest man in the world refused to pay his own grandson's ransom until the kidnappers mailed him a severed ear. Then he paid only the tax-deductible amount and loaned his son the rest at 4% interest. This is the Getty family. Oil billionaires who build an empire on black gold, then watch their own children destroy themselves with drugs, overdose, and despair. Money doesn't buy happiness. For the Gettys, it bought something far worse. The Getty dynasty begins not in a boardroom, but in the dusty oil fields of Oklahoma in 1903. George Franklin Getty, a former lawyer from Maryland with Scots-Irish roots, saw opportunity in the petroleum boom and founded the Minahoma Oil Company. He was cautious, methodical, and patient, traits that would define the family fortune. In 1906, his first successful well near Bartlesville struck oil, validating his conservative approach amid a chaotic rush of wildcatters. By 1916, his son Jean Paul Getty, later known simply as J. Paul, joined the business, and together they expanded beyond Oklahoma into refining and distribution. George died in 1930, leaving a substantial fortune built on prudent management of Osage and Mid-Continent oil assets. But it was his son who would transform this regional success into a global empire and become one of the most infamous figures in American history. J. Paul Getty was a different breed entirely. Where his father was steady J, Paul was ruthless and visionary. During the Great Depression, while others panicked, he acquired undervalued assets at bargain prices. Pacific Western Oil Corporation, in 1932, Tidewater Oil, Skelly Oil. He merged these into Getty Oil in 1967, creating a vertically integrated giant. But his masterstroke came in 1949, when he paid $9.5 million upfront plus $1 million annually to secure a 60-year concession in the Saudi Arabian-Kuwaiti neutral zone, a barren wasteland that other major oil companies had dismissed. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Oil was discovered in 1953, and by the late 1950s, the Wofford field was producing 16 million barrels annually. In 1957, Fortune magazine named J. Paul Getty the richest man in the world, with an estimated fortune between $1 billion and $4 billion. He had eclipsed the Rockefellers, the Mellons, the Astors, and the DuPonts, dynasties that had been established generations earlier. Yet this man, who could buy anything, chose to buy almost nothing for anyone else at J. Paul Getty's personal life was a disaster of Shakespearean proportions. He married 5 times, divorced 5 times, and fathered 5 sons, 4 of whom survived to adulthood. He was, by his own admission, and by every account from those who knew him, a terrible father and husband. Biographer Robert Lenzner described him as illiterate with respect to being a father or a husband. His frugality became legendary and grotesque. He installed a payphone at his English estate, Sutton Place, for guests to use. He refused to pay for his own son's medical bills. He negotiated every expense down to penny while sitting on billions. And when his family needed him most, he responded with the cold calculus of an accountant, not the warmth of a patriarch. The darkness that would define the Getty family exploded into public view in 1973. On July 10th, J. Paul Getty III, the 16-year-old grandson of the world's richest man, was kidnapped in Rome by the 'Ndrangheta, a Calabrian criminal organization. They demanded $17 million. J. Paul Getty's response was immediate and chilling. I have 14 other grandchildren. If I pay 1 penny now, I'll have 14 kidnapped grandchildren. For months, the boy remained in captivity, blindfolded and imprisoned in a cave, while his grandfather refused to budge. The kidnappers took away his radio, killed a bird he had kept as a pet, and played Russian roulette against his head. His health declined rapidly. Then, in November 1973, a Roman newspaper received an envelope containing a lock of hair, a human ear, and a note. This is Paul's first ear. If within 10 days the family still believes that this is a joke mounted by him, then the other ear will arrive. In other words, he will arrive in little bits. Only then did J. Paul Getty agree to pay, but not the full amount. He agreed to $3 million, then paid only $2.2 million, the maximum his accountant said would be tax-deductible. The remaining $800,000 he loaned his son, the boy's father, at 4% interest. When John Paul Getty III was finally found alive at a gas station in December 1973, 5 months after his abduction, he called his grandfather to thank him. Paul Getty refused to come to the phone. The trauma of those months never left the boy. His kidnappers had fed him brandy to keep him warm and numb his pain, and he developed a lifelong alcohol addiction. In 1981, at age 25, he suffered a drug overdose that led to a stroke, leaving him paralyzed and nearly blind for the rest of his life. He died in 2011, after 3 decades confined to a wheelchair, a living symbol of what Getty wealth could not protect against, and what Getty coldness had helped create. The tragedy did not end with him. John Paul Getty Jr., the boy's father, battled heroin addiction for years and was completely blind by 1984 from complications of drug use. His second wife had died of a heroin overdose before the kidnapping. Gordon Getty, J. Paul's third son, was revealed in 1999 to have maintained a secret second family for years. Ronald Getty struggled with his own demons, and the grandchildren fared no better. Andrew Getty, grandson of J. Paul, was found dead in 2015 at age 47 from methamphetamine intoxication and gastrointestinal hemorrhage. John Gilbert Getty, another grandson, died in 2020 from a fentanyl overdose. The family that had built an empire on black gold seemed cursed to destroy itself with white powder. The money, however, kept flowing. After J. Paul Getty's death in 1976, his estate, valued at $661 million, went almost entirely to the J. Paul Getty Trust, which funded the Getty Museum and made it, at one point, the richest museum in the world. The Sarah C. Getty Trust, established by J. Paul's mother in 1934 with $3.5 million, had ballooned to $4 billion by 1985. Gordon Getty, as sole trustee, orchestrated the sale of Getty Oil to Texaco for $10.1 billion in 1984, the largest corporate acquisition in history at that time. The family trust was divided into 4 equal portions of approximately $750 million each. But the litigation was brutal. Family members sued each other for 18 months over management and distribution. The wealth that was supposed to secure generations became a weapon they used against each other. J. Paul Getty's legacy is a monument to the emptiness of extreme wealth. He built one of the greatest fortunes in human history through vision, ruthlessness, and almost supernatural ability to see value where others saw nothing. But he was incapable of seeing value in his own family. He let his grandson be mutilated rather than pay a ransom that was pocket change to him. He let his son struggle with addiction while he counted pennies. He died alone in his English mansion, surrounded by art he collected, but by almost no one who loved him. The Getty family is worth approximately $5 billion today. They are the 54th wealthiest family in America, and they are perhaps the most powerful proof that money, cold hard cash, doesn't buy happiness. It buys isolation, addiction, paranoia, and a special kind of misery that only the ultra-wealthy can afford. The next time you see the Getty name on a museum wing or an art collection, remember, behind every donation was a family tearing itself apart. Behind every masterpiece was a boy whose ear was cut off because his grandfather was too cheap to save him. The Gettys didn't just build an oil empire. They built a cautionary tale about what happens when wealth replaces humanity, and when the richest man in the world discovers that the one thing his billions cannot buy is the love of his own blood.